find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us.
Welcome into the Gibson Fantasy Football Podcast. Happy Halloween. We're going solo today as I've been back on the island for a mere, 2 hours maybe. So not enough time to coordinate, just enough time to hammer this thing out before I gotta go pick up the kidlings and get ready for their. Thought I'd bang this one out on my own, but that's okay because gives me plenty of time to bitch and moan about my distraught loss to my evil friend there this week. So let's jump right into it. And what the hell? Why not begin there, rip the Band-Aid off, and get it over with? So Inaki and I, we had ourselves a heavyweight battle. It got started on Thursday. He was rocking some Minnesota Vikings players, as he loves to do, being a Skull fan. So he had JJ and Jones, who both did well. JJ a little better, but didn't crush it. So I was okay with that. He left Kyron on the bench, so that felt good about that. And I left Puka on the bench, and so we both entered the weekend with some regrets. Not quite sure what that would do to our matchup. Things were real kind of back and forth early games were rocking, and I was putting up some pretty big points, so things were pretty heavy in my favor going into the late window. But we knew, he's got Josh Allen, he's got Shakir, he's got the Bills D, he's got Swift. It's just too many players left to really start counting your chickens before they're hatched there. And so as the evening progressed, things were looking pretty good for me, especially with James Cook going ham and my Broncos D shutting down the Panthers. Seattle just couldn't get anything going against Buffalo, and then a couple of turnovers, a couple of sacks, and so he started rocking up some points there. My Broncos give up a late touchdown. Younghoe Koo misses a field goal. DeAndre Swift breaks off a huge run and then just keeps getting the ball as they're trying to close the game out late. And so the final, result is I'm up, but not by a lot. And he's still got Kittle, and so it's not feeling comfortable. And so we're checking into it, and so Kittle comes in, and he does what Kittle does. He goes fucking nuclear, has himself a huge game with over 100 yards and a tutty, questionable tutty, I might add. That's that was quite the pass interference no call there, but unfortunately it was a no call. So Kittle goes off for 21 points, leaves me with a 13-point deficit, and my man Malik Neighbors, who we've seen some big games, we've seen some down games, so you never quite know what to expect. Monday night rolls around. I'm in Ottawa. I'm busy doing my thing. We get some football going. Get back to the hotel. Neighbors is doing fuck all. Luckily, I've had a few beers, so I'm not feeling the sadness too much. And then, halftime hits, and it's like, I don't know, man. This is probably over. Third quarter, not too much going on. Catch or two here and there. And then all of a sudden, late in the fourth, they're driving, and they're like, neighbors, 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 neighbors. And it's like, holy shit, this could actually happen. And Inaki's starting to get nervous, and we're both thinking the same thing. Could it be? Neighbors is a mere 2 points away from one more catch for 15 yards or two more catches, get him into the end zone, and this thing's over. And then, as luck would have it, the way the week was meant to go, and when you put your faith in Danny Dimes, well, you come up penniless. And so, unfortunately, he went and threw the ball to the Steelers defense, and, that sealed it. So, kudos to Inaki. Big W. Stays atop the standings. We'll chat about that in a minute. But second and third highest scores of the week. So, I think we lived up to the hype. Beat me 133.5 to 131.5. So, kudos to him. And, I feel pretty good about my team still. I think I'll bounce back. Said it was the second and third score of the week, and well, I'd love to talk about myself for several minutes. It's not all about me, and so let's go to the champ of the week, Mr. Brody, who said last place, battle for last place. How about no? And fucking wheeled his way to victory with a huge day from just about everybody you could imagine. You know, Lions defense, Kyle Pitts, Josh Jacobs, who the Packers, lost Jordan Love early and just ran the ball the whole time. Excuse me. CD Lamb goes nuclear late, 13 for 146 and two. It was just too much. And Jay, poor Jay, man. All year he's going, all right, Marvin Harrison. All right, Marvin Harrison. All right, Marvin Harrison. And what happens? Nothing. Yes, leaves with concussion. He's not doing much. So Jay says, all right, it's time to pivot, as one should. You got to make moves, got to make pivots. Moves over to Devontae for the Broncos, rides Bateman, says, okay. And what happens? Well, Harrison goes off for 6 for 111 and one, has one of his better games. Not to mention, Jay also leaves Stevenson on the bench, who had, a couple of tutties, 22 points. So would it have made a difference in the end? No, but just sort of the story of the season for Jay, who unfortunately biggest gap of the week because we had the loser of the week and the champ of the week in the same matchup. Not by much, Jay was only 4 points, 4.5 points off from getting a higher score than Aaron, but unfortunately he was the loser of the week yet again, which gives him 4 on the year. Speaking of Aaron, let's go there. So on paper, looked like a pretty tight matchup. Things were rolling along okay for Aaron there, with Lamar not having much of a day, and things were kind of looking in decent shape. And then Lamar does what Lamar does, and in his fourth quarter attempted comeback to knock off the Browns, which they failed to do, losing to Cleveland. That was one of the bigger upsets on the week. He still puts up a big day. Not to mention Jahmyr Gibbs. Najee gets in the end zone late. Andrews with another tutty. Kamara bounces back. And, Aaron just didn't have anybody that really carried the load for him. Montgomery at 14 points was his leader. So pretty good in that sense. But, I mean, you needed somebody to do something. And probably the biggest letdown would be Caleb Williams, only putting up 9 points. He had a rough game, didn't play well. And so when you give up 15 points at the quarterback position to the other player, it's hard to make that up with the rest of your roster. We'll keep moving here. And we had an interesting one with teams, kind of going in opposite directions. Justin's been reeling a bit since he had a strong start. Did win last week. And then Ryan's been on a hell of a roll. And so he kept that roll rolling when he acquired a couple of players from me. So I mentioned Puka, who I left on my bench. Regrets, but we're over it. For Ladd McConkey and Tucker Kraft. Now, Tucker Kraft, as tight ends did on National Tight End Day, found the end zone, 3 for 78 and 1. But Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 2 on the week, 6 for 111 and 2. Jesus, goes off nuclear. So he has a big day. And, hats off to Ryan, who had the guts to go double tight end and play Travis Kelce in his flex spot. And, Raiders have a history of getting whipped by the Chiefs. The score was close, but in the end, 27-20, they got the job done, and Kelce went 10 for 90 and 1. So big day there. Justin had a pretty good week. It was 118.5 to 105.6. So both teams had pretty good weeks, and there's been weeks where 105 points would probably get you a top 5 score, but this was not one of them, and so he takes the L. Last but not least, we got to go to the Gibson sibling battle. Krager and Don were going at it in full fledged here, and it was a doozy. It was back and forth. It was competitive. And things looked pretty set up for Dawn. She had Jordan Mason and going into the Sunday nighter. Krager had, the 49ers D, and then he had Boswell to go Monday. Dawn had the Steelers D. And so you thought, all right, well, Mason's going to tear up the Cowboys. They've been shit against the run. 49ers are one of the best teams at rushing the ball in the league. Comes out, has a pretty good start, and then boom, re-aggravates the shoulder, does absolutely nothing, leaves the game. Garendo comes in, absolutely just tears it up. And so would have been a huge day for Mason, and instead that goes to Garendo. 49ers are whooping the Cowboys. I think at one point it was like 27-10 or something like that. And then Dallas, late in the game when nobody cares is like, okay, now we're going to try. And, ball to CeeDee Lamb, ball to CeeDee Lamb, ball to CeeDee Lamb. And so they did score some points late, which hurt Craig because he dropped to 6 points from his defense, who had 2 interceptions and 2 sacks. So normally when you get that, you'd expect to have a 10+ point performance from your defense. Fortunately, that was not the case for Kreger, but still had a chance going into Monday night. We weren't sure quite how that was going to play out. Dawn was up by 2 points, and she had the Steelers D, and Craig had the Steelers kicker Boswell. So in that Giants matchup I referenced earlier, it started out, field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal, and that was just, music to the ears of Kreger. As the Steelers D gave up points to the Giants on field goals, and as the Steelers kicker kicked field goals right through the uprights there. And things were looking, pretty favorable for Kreger. And then all of a sudden, return touchdown comes for Pittsburgh, and boom, 6 points go to Dawn. She's now in the lead. Things are in her favor. And then, Kreger kicks another field goal. Steelers get a touchdown. He gets the extra point. Now he's in the lead. Then there's a couple of sacks. And then, as I mentioned, that late turnover, that sealed the deal. Pittsburgh takes the knee, and Dawn victory 112.44 to 109.2. Keeps her season alive and puts some more pressure on Kreger there. So it was a hell of a week. The matchups were fun. The games were competitive. It hurts to lose, but it was entertaining nevertheless. So where do we sit now? That's always the magical question. So point total is becoming a real factor here because it's a log jam after Inaki. He sits at 7-1. He's got a bit of a cushion now. Next closest is 5-3. And there's 4 of us. So Cash, me, Justin, and Kreger all sitting at 5-3. And point total is the differentiator there. So Cash with the highest point total in the entire league. So he sits in second. And then you've got Ryan, who with that 2-game winning streak here, moves to 4-4. So second to sixth is separated by 1 game. And then you throw in Aaron and Dawn at 3-5. So second to eighth is separated by 2 games. So we're really getting a log jam going on here. Brody, as we said, got into the basement, and he's at 2-6. And then Jay, at 1-7. It's going to be tough sledding at this point. Even if you win out, 6 games left, 7-7 could be enough, but the odds of that happening with the way things have gone, probably not very good. So we'll see how things shake out here. It's going to be an interesting few weeks ahead. 6 weeks to go, so I got to keep that in mind. But it's going to be a fun time to see what people decide to do with their team and how they decide to play it. We do allow for draft pick trading. I'll mention that in the chat, but it has to be like a swap. So typically we'll end up doing, I think it's about 15 rounds. So you can trade any round to somebody for another round and then include a player. So for example, if you're like Jay and you're sitting at 1-7, you're like, well, fuck it, I'm not gonna you win this year. So you can trade away a player that you might not do as a keeper. The other piece of that for the keeper is you can keep up to 3, and however many you keep, you lose that round pick. So if you keep 1 player, you lose your first round pick. If you keep 2, you lose your first and second round pick. Keep 3, you lose your first, second, and third round pick. So let's say hypothetically Jay looked at his roster and picked a player, or I don't know, let's just say Jonathan Taylor. And he was like, all right, well, I'm going to trade Jonathan Taylor to a team that needs a running back to try to win. Then he could say, I'll give you Taylor and I don't know, a 10th round pick, and you're going to give me back your 5th round pick, kind of thing. So that is an option. We have the pick swap because of the keeper function, and then I'll just mix it up, or correct it when we go to do the draft next year. So keep that in mind as we progress through the season if you decide you want to sell off. But also remember that whoever finishes in the last place in the playoffs gets that coveted blue balls trophy. So don't lose the league, even if you trade away some assets. All right. We covered the champs and losers. Brody with the winner, Jay with the loser. So let's see who the big players were this week. It's kind of a mixed bag of usual suspects and then unusual additions. Jalen Hurts led the way at quarterback, followed by Bo Nix. Man, go Broncos! Big win there. Kirk Cousins had a nice day against the Bucks. That's twice this season. Kate Otten with no Godwin or Evans had a huge day. Savvy pickup there by Anaki, who's Kittle's on a bye. Pitts, who we're going to see a lot of Brody players on here. Kelsey for Ryan, who talked about. My man James Cook led the way with a huge game. Josh Jacobs also helped Brody. And then my other man, Achan. So, nice trade there by me on that one, starting to pay some dividends. CD Lamb, Brody again, big day. McConkey, we talked about for Ryan. Tillman sitting on waivers until this week. Somebody grabbed him. Could have been Jay. I'd have to check that. Brody's defense, the Lions, another great pickup. Craig's defense, the Steelers, and then the Chargers, who handled the Derek Carlos Saints. And then kind of a fun one here. All three kickers on here are actually sitting on the waiver wire right now. So Anders Carlson, who the 49ers called up, obviously he's on a bye now. He led the way. Jake Elliott for the Eagles, and then Greg Joseph for the Giants. So quite the week, some unusual performances. And with all the injuries, we're kind of getting to that time of year now where somebody comes along like Lad McConkey or Kate Otten or Cedric Tillman, they might be better than some of those big name guys, or they might be, the equivalent of a big name guy now because opportunity has been thrust upon them with all these injuries. Injury wise, the injuries keep coming. We lose Stephon Diggs for the year with a torn ACL. So that'll be another shot for Justin, who's already dealing with some injuries after losing Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco. So that's going to be tough. And then we had another trade come through here just recently. So the Baltimore Ravens said we're going all in and sent a late pick to the Panthers to grab Deontay Johnson. Not good news for Brody, who's been liking having Deontay Johnson in the lineup because now he's going to be in a clusterfuck with Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews. Great news for Cash, whose quarterback just gets another weapon. But not so good for his tight end, I guess, Andrews, because there could be more target competition. Same goes for Flowers, who Anaki's been riding on and off. He's going to have some more target competition there, too. So we'll see how that shakes out. Lamar, a winner. Flowers, slight loser. Bateman, not a loser, who Jay tried to play this week. Andrews, slight loser. And then, no impact for the big man, Derrick Henry. He's just going to keep being good. All right. So what do we got today? Well, we've got football. But first, we've got matchups. So you got me kicking it off here against Aaron. So we got ourselves a fun one. We always have good battles, so that'll be an interesting one. Standings wise, I'm trying to get out of this clump of four people and hold my own as I see if maybe I can get lucky and catch a game on Anaki. And Aaron's trying to get to 4 and 5 and see if he can get in the mix there in the playoff race. So obviously I'm going to favor myself to win on that one, as no one's going to be surprised. Next up, we got Krager and Ryan. So, sort of the same thing here where you've got a lower team and Ryan who's sitting at 4 and 4, but's on a 2-game winning streak. And then Krager, who's just like me, coming off a loss. So I think it's going to be a good one. It's hard to say for sure at this point. Lineups aren't completely set. There's a lot of variations that could come into play, but I think I lean Ryan because he's got some key players that have been going off here with particularly the running backs. Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson. He's picked up Stafford to throw in there against Seattle. I like that matchup. Little worried about Baker against the Chiefs for Krager. Jets, kind of falling apart here, but he does have Mixon against the Jets though, so that's a good one. Brian Robinson. It's going to be close. It is. I really, it's hard to say for sure. They also have opposite defenses against each other. That's kind of fun. Ryan's got Baltimore against my Broncos, and Craig's got my Broncos against Baltimore. So I got to give a slight lean to Ryan, but that's going to be a close one for sure. The aforementioned Inaki, who's sitting in first place, takes on the misses there, Dawn. So she's got some work to do. You know, Jordan Mason's on a bye, Pittsburgh defense on a bye. So she's going to have to make some moves there to kind of fix her lineup up and go grab herself a defense. So her hope is that McCaffrey comes back after the bye. So, I mean, if she could get a win and get to 4-5 and then get CMC back, anything's possible. Excuse me. Obviously, Anaki's a tough team to beat. He's become a bit of a juggernaut at this point. So he's made some moves like getting Kate Otten to fill in. Gonna be a tough one. You got to lean his way here, but we'll see. And then we've got Jay and Justin. So Jay, you know, trying to just salvage some dignity. Justin trying to separate from the 5-3 teams with Gregor and I. You know, gonna be an interesting one here too. Just looking at the matchups, you know, Philly's got the Jags. That's a really nice one. So that helps his defense. Barkley and Smith. Kincaid, we'll see. Connor's always a good bet, although the Chicago defense is very good. On the other side, should get Olave back with Derek Carr. Marvin Harrison's, you know, got that same defense. Stevenson's in the lineup. It's a close one. I think I lean Justin's side just because he's got a few more marquee players, but I don't think it's a lock. I think Jay's got some pretty good pieces in place here, so we'll see if he can pull off the upset. But I would lean Justin at this point. And then the rising Brody against the you know, 3 in a row win Cash. So he's sitting there 5-3, just like the rest of us, the other 3 I talked about, but he's got the most points. So we'll see what Brody does here. He's got Dak in the lineup against the Falcons. Their defense has given up a lot. The Dak stack was, you know, good, but not great on the Dak end. Obviously, CD Lamb went nuclear and pulled the weight there. But it could be a big factor this week. Jacobs, tough matchup against the Lions, but that game should be a shootout. You kind of hope Jordan Love plays there to be able to get some extra points. Otherwise, I mean, Pitts and McLaurin have been good. Defense wise, you know, Chargers for Cash, he's got them in again against the Browns. We'll see how that plays out. And Brody's got those Lions from last week against the Packers. I think this is going to be a close one. I actually think Brody's got the potential to win here. We do have DK Metcalf potentially coming back after that injury. So that would certainly help boost Cash's team. But I'll pick Brody, partly out of belief, partly out of hope. You know, fuck you, Cash. Want to see you lose, try to catch you here. But I think it's going to be another good matchup. 2 good teams. Brody's got some stuff figured out. He's got some quality players now. So that's the league picks. We'll wrap up with the Thursday night game. So we've got the Jets and Texans. Jets are 2-6. Texans are 6-2. On paper, you'd say, well, that's just an easy pick. And in some ways, it is because the Jets just keep finding a way to implode on themselves. You know, namely this loss to the Patriots here on Sunday. But it's not as easy as you think because Stroud's not playing well against good defenses. Nico Collins is still out another week. Stephon Diggs is now gone. That offensive line is banged up. Jets just got Hassan Reddick back on the field for some pass rush. When healthy, their defense can be good, especially the secondary, and you're relying a lot on Tank Dell now. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think the Jets have the potential. But honestly, I just don't trust the Jets. I think they're just going to shoot themselves in the foot again and find a way to lose. So I'll take the Texans, but I think Aaron's got Nico or Tank Dell in there. So I'll root for the Jets to, you know, shut down Dell and keep it close and maybe pull out an upset. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Short and sweet as we could here. It's been a fun week, eh? It's been a wild week for me. Excited for Halloween. Gonna go grab the children, get set. Happy Halloween to everybody. Happy football night if you get a chance to watch after the kids are done doing what they need to do. And as always, clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.